in-depth race recaps.
He's shown speed, he's shown dominance at other racetracks.
Pit stops and strategy.
Hell yeah, boys. Let's go. Race strategy, man.
Fantasy racing insights.
Talking about being a team in the summer. We did it. Good job, boys.
Your weekly home for everything Ryan Blaney and Team 12.
Good job, Timmy. Here's to many more, fellas. Thank you.
This is the Team Blaney podcast.
Let's go race for a championship.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 192 of the Team Blaney podcast. My name is Adam Rogers, and alongside me is co-host Steve Mez. This week, we are here to break down Ryan Blaney's run in the Great American Getaway 400 at Pocono Raceway. Steve, welcome back to another episode of the show. Welcome back to, I almost said stateside. That would have been last week. Welcome back to Ohio after your brief trip to Pennsylvania over the weekend. And your encounter with great weather of the weekend, perfect forecast, barely any chance of rain. How'd that work out for you?
That's incredible, because you're looking at the weather app for the 3 or 4 days prior, and the worst it got was like a 20% chance of rain, Long Pond, Pennsylvania, and it said chance at a brief shower. And then, as we're traveling early Sunday morning, we're looking at it, and I'm like, man, we're like maybe 50 miles away, and it's like, man, it's really dark in the distance. And I was like, that's very strange. And then, you get there, and it rains intermittently, and the lightning was more than anything else the problem. So, we got there, I want to say, by about 10 a.m. into our parking spot. And normally, we would have went inside and onto our adventure. We had bought the paddock passes, so we were ready to jump in there and go to check that out the way they've got that designed, where you can go through the tunnel, get to the other side of the track, be behind pit road, but then there's the victory lane back there, and then there's that area you can stand up on top of and get a good view of things. Of course, this weather situation, what it does more than anything else is it messes up the timing of things. In other words, track opens at, like, let's say, 8 a.m., I think. The parking lot's like 6 a.m., something like that, 7 a.m. So you could get there anywhere between 8 a.m. and noon, 1 o'clock, and people are going to come in, as they park, as they arrive, and you'll go through the where they'll check your stuff, check your bags at a certain point, or their tickets get scanned, and it's usually no lines, no real long lines, unless you go in the last minute right before the race starts. And a lot of people do that because they tailgate or whatever. So usually, in most of those circumstances, that's what you got. We'd have been in there, would have been like 10:30, would have been able to roam around, would have been checking things out, would have went over. We never made it to the foundation tent. I feel bad about that. But because of, like I said, everything being pressed the way it was, and we had bought this paddock pass, and we wanted to use it. Another bad thing about it is it also has a entrance onto the track.
Oh, yeah.
So you could sign start finish line. Well, they closed that part up because jet drivers are going to be out there the whole time cleaning up the track, and there wasn't going to be as much time. So the delays were kind of interesting, because there were points in times where people got up and tried to go for the grandstands to try and go in, and they weren't even letting people in. They sent everybody out, and if anybody was in already, they were sent out to their cars and had to come back in. So, which is understandable. The lightning strikes were actually, a couple of them were within a distance of a mile or two at different points in times. And I guess they've had an incident there years ago. So they're very, very careful about it. And it's understandable. And I can't throw any blame at them for anything that happened that point forward. It's just a bad situation, because I don't know how long we were in the parking lot, but it was probably, I want to say maybe 2 o'clock when they finally announced it was okay to go in, or 2:30. So at that point, everybody gets out of their cars and everybody rushes to the front. Now, one thing I will say they did pretty decent was the bag check area, although there was a couple thousand of us in one line heading toward it. It seemed to move halfway decent. They had a thing that you walk through for metal detection. And then if they decided anything else was out of the ordinary, then they would check the bag. We got clear bags. My wife went right through, and she had a cooler inside of the bag, and she went right through. So I don't quite get, mine. I end up getting stopped probably because I've got 2-3 different scanners and sets of headsets.
Yeah.
And the cool part about it is I didn't even have to take the backpack off because it's clear. I turn around, they look real quick. Okay, you can go. So we're ready for that situation every time anyway. The ticket was funny because, we printed our tickets. I didn't know if if they were going to have a scanner that do Bluetooth. I don't think they do. Um, as we say all these things, you have to remember this is an independently owned track. So they do things a little bit differently. They do things the way they've done them or how they want to do them. But when we go up we go through the back, still got to get to the gate. We're done through that area. Now we get to go to the gate. Now we skip the fan zone because we want to get in. You go to the gate, and they just wanted to see it. So luckily we had printed them, so I didn't have to pull them up on the phone and show them on the phone or anything. She showed hers, I showed mine. Oh, okay. And then in. So once again, though, once you get in there, the way the setup is, the back of that grandstand is flat across down the front stretch, and everything, there's a building behind it that houses a bunch of, bathrooms and stuff like that, and offices and so forth. So in between those two, they've got food trucks, tons of them, great food trucks, great stuff. Problem is, everybody came in at once. So guess what? There was nothing but lines everywhere. So we go over to get our wristbands so we can use the tunnel. Decide to do that. That works out pretty good. The tunnel is crowded as heck. It's not real wide. Once again, everybody is going over there because you spent the money on it. You want to use it to some extent. And you could have stayed over there all race. The problem is like that one area that it's up over top of the pit boxes. The 150 feet, whatever long it is. It's great, but it was totally packed. We walked up there just to take a look, but we couldn't even get to the rail because everybody was already against the rail set up. So, okay, that's fine. We got to run into Jerry Mariotti back there, which was awesome. Got to talk to him for a couple minutes. Then you get, back there. There's areas where you can get to food stands back there in the paddock area. One of them was cash only, which was really weird because now
I haven't had that in a while.
So I think something crashed on their end. I think that their way of checking or doing credit cards crashed, and their line was real short because of it. So everything else back there was moving along pretty well. Now the funny is we waited till like they were doing driver intros. Now we could have stuck around for the driver intros, but at this point we figured we'll get back under there because how long it's going to take to get through the tunnel, get on the other side, and then we knew exactly where we were in the stands. I think it was section 229, 227, which is like maybe 100, 150 feet before the start-finish line. Pretty good setup. Of course, the pit box was way down the other end. We didn't really get the pit box, but when we come up through the tunnel, I said, I got to go to the restroom. And as we walk between a couple of these stands that are there, one of them was wide open. It's hungry. There it is, right there. And sure enough, like within 5 minutes, had whatever it was made fresh, which really kind of lucked out because, like I said, when we first walked into the place, there were lines 20 to 30 people deep. But then we got to the seat and we're able to pretty much enjoy the race. I don't want to pick on them, like I said, because they're independently owned. But there's two things that you have to know if you've never been there before, and I think maybe I should inform people. First off, unless you're sitting way up high, you're not going to see the whole track. You won't see like into the turns. You'll see them between the turns. If you're up like on the level we were on, if you're down even lower, you're not going to see anything. And then from left to right, because the stands are flat across a flat straightaway, you really can't see much when it comes down past you. If you turn to your left, you're going to see your neighbors here. If you turn to your right, you're going to see your neighbors here over here. I mean, there's just nothing you can do about it. It's just the way the sight lines are because of that. I mean, if you're sitting at, like you'll be in Atlanta this week, that front stretch has two bends in it, so the track bends around. I mean, not the track, the stands bend around so that you're in a matter of your sight angle changes and the person next to you really isn't in your sight angle as much because you're on an arc. It's just something that's, one of those things that's just the way it's always been there. The other thing was the Wi-Fi. And I just don't know. I know there's an expense to these things, but it just kept dropping out. It said there was Wi-Fi. I would try to log on to the Wi-Fi. It would drop out. Try to log on, drop out. Try to log on, drop out. And that was a constant battle. And I know that these things get overloaded. I don't know exactly how they can fix them, but from my perspective, if I'm not going to have good sight lines, I want that Wi-Fi so that I can log into my phone and pull up the NASCAR app and be able to check timing and scoring and know where they're at. Because your scoring pylon also, and we've had pylon discussion before, they're not really worth their weight in gold because, like people think they are, because they show you the top 10, and then down below is 2 other spots or 3 other spots, and those rotate. So if you're not running in the top 10 that whole time, it's just rotating till you see your guy. So first off, you have to do that to check out, figure out where your guy is. And then if you have a paint scheme like Ryan had this weekend, where it's not quite as easy to see. Like if he was in the Menards yellow, it'd be like, oh yeah, there it is. There's the Menards yellow all the way around the track, which you could see Austin Cindric all the way around the track. Also, the pylons don't show you gap. They don't show you, distance to the guy in front of them, time-wise, or to the leader, or lap time. Which is all things that when I'm sitting at home, I totally use or pay attention to. So, but like I said, being there live is still the thing to do either way. And if you want to give it a shot, but be aware that those are things you're going to run into while you're there. So kind of be prepared for it. Don't let it get to you. Don't let it, the day itself, like, causes anguish just because it was delayed, So you're kind of like got that feeling like, oh, I just want to go home at some point, because you're kind of like throwing your arms up in the air and are we going to get this in? And is it going to be tomorrow? We got to go find a hotel. You're doing all those things sitting there in the parking lot, hoping that, you get to watch the race. But once the race starts, everything's back to normal, back to the way you want to enjoy it. So.
And that's the good thing, because looking at the forecast, once the rain started, there's points when it was pretty bleak, to where they might be lucky to get it started at like 5:30, and then have it be right down to the wire for when sunset was. But right, like you said, like right around 2:00, it just stopped raining. Yeah. The wind shifted, and that was actually something you kind of said, like if the wind was going a different direction, it'd be out of here. The wind like really picked up, basically blew the storm away. They got the track dried relatively quickly, and got that thing going, and it was done well before sunset. And I was really happy because, I knew you guys were at the track, and we knew, people, we have listeners of ours that traveled from, all the way overseas for this. And I knew they were there, and it's like, we want them to have a good time. We've been in, especially at Daytona down here in Atlanta and some other places, in some pretty lengthy multi-day rain delays. So I hate that feeling for folks. So glad that you guys got the race in, and ended up turning into a really challenging, even Ryan's race honestly is very much just like the whole day went for everybody. Really challenging day. We'll go through all that adversity, but ends up pretty positive. And why don't we kick things off with your notes on practice qualifying, and we'll get into the race recap.
Yeah, so practice Saturday was going to be he was going to be in session 2. So session 1 goes out. The 99 sets an early lap for best speed. Then 6 minutes in, the 51 hits the wall in 3. Now these things screw up your 5-lap, 10-lap average things too as the practice goes on. At that point, the best 5-lap average was the 5, 53.604. 15 minutes in, the 6 now becomes the fastest lap, which showing pretty good speed. And he ran a 53.258. I took a note here. The 22 was in that session. He was P9, 0.311 back. And then the 5-lap average ends up being the 6 car in that session with a 53.379. So pretty quick 5-lap average. The fast 5 for that group were the 6, the 5, the 99, the 8, and the 43. Now, once again, this is one of those things where the first session, the second session gets to be a little bit faster. I think the 6's lap between the 2 sessions, he ends up being like the 10th best time. Like 9 guys from the second session are faster. So we got to session 2 here. Tim says, run on if you're happy. And what they mean by that is he can run the session out. They've got things set up a certain way, and they know what they want to adjust certain things. So he told him, go ahead and run on. But early on, the 24 sets the quick lap. 23 does, I'm sorry. And then the 24 beats him. The 24 goes to P1 with a 52.706. 4 laps in, Ryan is like P11, about half a second back of that. 5 laps in, Jonathan says, keep running if you think it's okay. So unless he thought something was up. So now his individual lap goes to P7 at a 53.12, which is 0.417 back of that fast lap. 10 lap average, though, is P2, 53.397 on a 10 lap average. And that's pretty impressive. Of course, the 24 is the top guy in that. And the 24, well, how his day goes. The 9 minutes in, he brought it in. And the reason was, he says he wanted it checked over. He felt something in turn 1 and said something weird. So he wanted them to look it over before he kept running laps in case there was something going on there. His single lap ends up being P8 here. He does run 22 laps, and the fast 5 for that session was the 24, the 23, 24, 23, the 9, the 45, and the 17. He goes out 27th for qualifying. Qualifying session ends up being really, really weird because you got the 23 has an issue with his starter and doesn't take a lap. The 21 had an issue in practice that they were trying to fix with their rear diffuser. He didn't take a lap. Then the 51, the 44 had their issues. The 51, of course, crashed in the first session, so he didn't take a lap. 44 was just having failures and issues to begin with. And then the 24 wrecks on his qualifying lap. And that's a guy who looked like he was the guy to beat from that second practice, Ryan's lap, I think it was when he got out there and ran it, it was like 17th or 18th best. So a couple people did pass him. It was going to be P20 for the next day. And what do we got? Was the 11 gets the pole. Put him on TV a lot, just sitting there for everybody else to run their lap. And a lot of guys didn't run the lap they thought they were going to run when they got out there. So we get to Sunday here, and one cool thing about it in the parking lot, it rained, but it didn't really wasn't a downpour. So we got out of the car a couple different times, and man, were there a ton of Blaney fans parked around us. Got to talk to the guys next to us. And, it was like there were people on the other side of them, and it was really kind of cool. Just kind of like hang out in the parking lot when you're waiting. So when we get to the race itself here, it's stages of 30, 95, and 160 here, 7 sets of tires. Fuel run, it says, Bob, according to Bob, 37 to 41 laps. And of course, to the rear, we've got the 10, the 12, the 21, the 23, the 24, the 51, and the 44. And it was interesting is we got that message online, and you sent the text actually too, that he was going to the rear, and it was for a starter, is what we were told. They say to say unapproved adjustments on on social medias, but so it changes your strategy right off the bat, maybe because you knew how fast you were, and you figured you could pass some of the cars and maybe get yourself up where you're running the strategy with the guys up front. Other thing that it does is it keeps you off of the strategy of flipping the stage, because unless you really have a caution or two early on and can get yourself up front, once you're a certain distance from the leader, you can't hit early because you may lose the lead lap before the end of the stage. So those kind of things we thought about, knowing that he was going to start near the back.
Just wanted to pad those. He's already has the statistics for the best passer rating in NASCAR. So he just wanted to pad those stats. And boy, if he isn't far and away the best in that rating after this race, I don't know who could be in second. But plenty of cars to pass on Sunday.
So Ryan, from what I could tell, Ryan was like 32nd on the initial restart because all the other ones back there with him. And I don't know how they figure out who gets to be where when they do that. But by lap 8, he's up to 30th. At lap 17, up to 25th. At lap 25, up to 20th. So it took 25 laps into the stage, but he got himself to where he would have started. And then here come the ones who decide to flip the stage. They start pitting the 99, the 77, the 6, the 41, the 54, the 20, the 42. So what that does, though, is Ryan moves up in the running order, too, here. The 11 wins the stage, and Ryan finishes 12th. And they take 4 tires, and they're waiting on Bourbon. I didn't catch this on the radios there. Here's the bad part about listening to the radio at the track. Sometimes there's just too much noise. You're sitting where we're sitting. Pit road is across from you, and you don't hear everything. And sometimes things get fuzzy. We've got Mule in turn 1. So sometimes you got that changeover between Tim and Mule. And it's funny because I got home today and listened to some of the in-car audio. And Mule, I give him a huge credit. He is really good, really concise on there, and telling Ryan what he needs. From where I'm sitting, I couldn't hear him very well. And I almost feel like if I can't hear him very well, Ryan can't hear him very well. I know that's not true, like I said, because we watched the in-car a little bit on Max today, and could definitely tell how good he was at helping him on the restarts. And that's why he's in turn 1. When you're up on the spotter stand, the way that long straightaway is, Tim really can't spot turn 1 because the cars are almost directly away from him and he's behind them. So Mule, beautiful job all day Sunday with that. So yeah, the waiting on Bourbon part was funny. I didn't catch that. And then you guys start posting on Twitter now. Wi-Fi is bad, but even in a bad Wi-Fi situation, my wife's phone works way better than mine. So even if she can't get Wi-Fi, she can still get internet, and Twitter works best of all the social medias during that type of thing. So she saw this, and she started showing me this picture, and I'm like, what the heck is that? What are they talking about? I never really could hear it on the radio. Today, like I said, I went back and listened to it, and I raised a glass to him for coming up with that. That's so funny that they use that term for fuel all day.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting, and then it was funny. I think I ended up posting like a bottle of Buffalo Trace, and I was like, I don't know what bourbon to use and whatever. So, but that's all I posted. Yeah, I just posted that with a little emoji. I thought it was pretty funny.
It's funny when you know a little bit about the guys that they probably like. Mule, I think, is a guy who likes a good big glass of bourbon. Brian, I think, does too. I don't know about Jonathan per se, but a couple of those guys, when they get some time off and can have a beverage, I think that that's a beverage of choice for him. So that's a really kind of cool, funny way to say it. Because I think he says at one point, "Good job saving on the."
Good job on your bourbon.
Conserving your bourbon, I guess. So this stop was 11.240, and like I said, these stops are very deceiving because fuel is everything. What was the quote that you used last week in the interview? You said something about Todd Gordon said.
The best time to start saving fuel is when you wake up in the morning. Yeah.
When you wake up in the morning. So Pocono is definitely one of those places for that. So they're P20 for this restart when the things cycle around. The car's already pre-fitted beforehand. Lap 35 here. The 6 is now the leader here. By lap 40, Ryan, we get a caution here for the 35 in turn 1 here. Ryan's the 18th at this point. Here they're doing pitting for 2 tires and a splash of bourbon.
We thought.
Yeah. And he ends up being P20 for the restart because not everybody came in, but 2 tires, try it out. It kind of worked out depending on where they were at. Restart lap 49. That stop was a 4.580. So 2 tires, that's not bad. The 6 is the lead here. Ryan gets to P15 when the caution comes on lap 54 for the 23 into the wall in turn 2. And at the track, like I said, it's harder to tell at the track, but we find out like through Twitter that all the 2311 cars had issues with their brakes, and that's what happened to 35. And now this is what happened to 23 and the 45. Basically, by 2 guys crashing, the 45 as the race goes on figures out and they have to come in and fix it. But this one is this time they go ahead and pit, and they're going to do a splash and go, and it's a 2.320 second stop, but it did not go well.
He went,
and it was too fast on pit road, is what happened. So they got to run pit road anyway. Or tail end, so they got to do tail end anyway. So they run pit road again, come down, take 4 tires, in no rush now, fill up on the bourbon. This is a 12.260. The restart is at lap 60. He's now in 32nd. So now we're back back to 32nd where we started the race. The 22 is the leader here, but lap 62, the 48 takes the lead. And by lap 75, we're back up to P15. We passed, we got 4 tires that a lot of guys don't have. We have pressure tires, and we're able to make those moves. We get a caution on the next lap 75 here for debris on the front stretch. Now, I didn't see it from where we were at.
71. So the 71 had a brake issue as well, and we believe that was his. He didn't hit the wall, luckily, but he did lose a tire, and I believe they're picking up the debris from his like brake rotor and stuff too. So
yeah, okay. So this time we're pitting for 4 tires and fuel with a 10.440 up to P22, and we were at P18 when the caution happened. So lap 83 here, a couple cars stay out. That's part of what this changes a little bit here. Lap 83, we get this caution for the 8, 20, 88, 10, and I think 38 was involved too. And this is like when they thought the 45 stops for a long time on pit road here for the brake issue. I think they even brought it behind the wall even to work on whatever it was. So we restart lap 87 from P16 here, and the 19 is now leading. And by lap 92, we're up to 9. Carving through some people. And lap 95 here, the 19 wins the stage. Ryan is P8 at this point, and they're staying out. They know they got to pit one more time the rest of the race, so now we're staying out. So we get this restart, lap 101 from P7. One of the cars pitted in front of him. And the 19 is the leader. Somewhere here I missed one of these pit stops on the way back. Then the 6 car had their thing where they pitted before the pit road was open.
Yep.
I don't know if you wanted to comment on that. I don't know exactly what happened. We saw it. We were like, the red light's on. What's he doing?
Yeah, they got confused. They were like talking about their strategies, and they had like a big conversation going on. And Brad said something about like all race long they took a certain amount of laps like every time before they would hit pit road, and it was a little bit different on that one. But and I don't remember who was P2 at the time, but you see both of them peel off to go down.
Hocevar.
Okay.
Because Hocevar made some sort of statement on his radio about how he faked him out.
Yeah, because he follows them almost all the way to the commitment line and then shoots back on the track, and the 6 keeps going. Yeah. And after the race, in the post-race show, Brad said, they asked him, like, what was he thinking in that moment? And he's like, well, either way, I thought we had made a mistake because nobody came with us. Mm-hmm. And then he realized eventually that nobody came because it was closed. So I liked his attitude after that. They came back on the radio. They were talking through it and basically saying, don't worry about it. And I think he said, the race can come back to us here.
So the restart, like I said, lap 101 here from P7, the 19's leading. By lap 103, we're P5. We got past the 2 and the 21 in that whole melee. Good couple of laps of racing. There's 2, the 21. I believe the 9 was also involved there, and 5 was involved there. So we got past a couple of those guys. And then at lap 115, here we passed the 9 to get to 4th. And the 19 pits on lap 118. So this is where the cycle starts. This is one of those deals, I think, where they want to run a little longer if they can. They won't have to take as much gas. Who knows? They might have took 2 tires at that point if it would have. But, kind of the way it worked out really good, actually. His stop on the 19 car was 11.020. And I wrote note of that because he was supposed to go on the crew chief. He says, his crew chief says, go on me. And he went on the jack.
Yep.
And I don't know, Twitter, I don't know how they get these numbers and who gets them from where, but somebody on Twitter said that they were like 6 laps short on fuel.
So on Twitter and then on the broadcast, they said 6 laps short. Post-race, the crew chief says 9. So I mentioned in our Discord chat, I was like, these crew chiefs are always, I think they always exaggerate. And I bring up the Martinsville when I don't remember if it was 23 or 24, but Jonathan had the TV broadcast convinced that Ryan could run out of fuel. at the end of the race. And there was no chance in this. I think it was when we were both there, because I was telling you, and you were confused, and I was like, radio is saying that he could run out of gas, and you were like, there's no way he could run out of gas. But I heard Jonathan's interview with him, and they're asking him about it, and he says, yeah, we might be a couple laps short here. So I always go back to that, where I'm like, he was never going to run out of gas there. But anyway, yeah, they said 6 laps on the broadcast, 9 laps post race is what James Small says. I can't imagine somebody being actually able to save 9 full laps at a place like Pocono leading the race. So
what it says to me is they miscalculated somewhere before that.
Someone miscalculated,
yeah, before that, not after, not at that pit stop itself, but before. They had more in the tank than they knew from before. Lap 123 here, Ryan Pitts from the lead. It's kind of cool as he waited, and then when he led a lap or two, then he pitted. It was a 12.680, and I was really interested to see how this was going to work out, because he was going to be out there on tires that were 5 laps fresher than other guys, but we get a caution on the next lap for the 88.
This was chaos at first.
Yeah, I was thinking the whole time, I was like, if it goes green, he was only a certain distance behind him to begin with. Now he's going to have 5 lap pressure tires those first couple of laps, and then before it equals out, maybe he'll get to him, Oh, we get this caution. And again, cautions fall at the weirdest times. The 88 was spinning out in turn 1. I guess Josh couldn't get 4 in a row.
That's true.
People know what we're talking about. That Josh Williams spots for the 88 car in the Cup, and the 88 car in Xfinity, and the 34 truck in the Truck Series. And going into Sunday, he'd won 3 races in a row, going back to last weekend. Some who haven't pitted do pit at this point, like the 6, the 7, the 8, the 16, the 38, the 51, who had moved up a little bit. They got kind of, I want to say screwed, but yeah, their days changed. They're going to have fresher tires, but they're going to have to work from further back. The 19 leads for the restart lap 130 with 30 to go. Ryan is P3, the 11 is P2, and there's a point early in the first part of the restart where I thought the 11 and the 19 were going to race a little bit, and the 11 couldn't get underneath them. I want to say it was about 5 or 6 laps into the run. Ryan gets to the 11 and can't get by him.
Nope.
And has to kind of back away. And that was pretty much it from there. Like if he gets past the 11, we might see some interesting things. But the reality is, and I got the app to work long enough for a couple of laps in there. They were about half a second to 0.7 of a second between the 3 of them. So the 11 couldn't get no more than inside of that bubble usually, and Ryan, vice versa, from behind the 11 couldn't get that much closer to the 11 for the most part. So nobody was like operating like where they're real loose or real tight, and they just ran the same laps. 0.5, 0.6, 0.5, 0.6. And that's the way it finished. It was a little bit of a parade, but, overall, the 19 wins, but Ryan, P3, and he had stage points in stage 2 with that 8th place. So great day, especially considering everything they went through all morning and then the pit road speeding penalty. It's so funny to listen to Ryan post-race interview with Kim Kuhn there, because he owns it. He says, then penalty on me, and he kind of like chuckles because they recover. They figured out some strategy to get themselves a little bit of a strategy, but the cautions fell at the right times too. But the car had enormously good speed. And that's the part that people don't, maybe don't see with Pocono, because Pocono's a weird track. You don't get a ton of passing after restarts. But he was able to pass a lot of guys, and that's because he had the car underneath him.
Yeah, another great run, like you said. A lot of people already this week, it's only been one day, are talking about the dirty air. And, every week with fans latch onto something. So they're upset about the dirty air. And it's true. That last run, like you said, it kind of just kept going back and forth. Like there's a couple of times where Ryan gained a lot on the 11 and it looked like maybe he'd get a run on him. Yeah. But as soon as he'd get up right up behind him, and he never got to his bumper or anything, but as soon as he got up to where you thought he'd have a run in the next corner, immediately he'd kind of hit a brick wall. And you'd see the 11 would do the same thing up to the 19. And it's just so wild to me that, again, I don't think the 9 laps or 6 laps short was accurate. But
Yeah.
on TV, they were doing a great job of showing the telemetry, and the 19 was actively saving in front of the field, but still able to run pretty good lap times. And he actually said after the race, sometimes they tell you have to slow down to go faster. And he's like, I think I proved that. Because he was backing up the corners big time and still making great speed. He was running like top 3, not always the fastest laps, but at least top 3 lap times on that last run. But it was just amazing I don't know if it's amazing. It was unfortunate that I thought that at least if the 11 and 19 could get to racing, that would bring Ryan to him, and then Ryan could get a twofer, is what I thought. And if anything, I just was hoping Ryan would get past the 11, because I thought for sure the way the 19 was freaking out that they were going to run out, but it just didn't happen.
I don't know if, and you're never going to hear Denny say it, but I don't know if at some point he was protecting his teammate. And I say that like he ran right behind him in the dirty air the whole time. He didn't really try to nose out or try to get a run off a 3 down the front stretch. And Ryan tried that a bunch of different times. He come off a 3, tried to get a little lower, tried to get a run to the 11, and couldn't get there. Well, the 11, Denny at certain points didn't even look like he tried that. So I think he kind of protected his teammate's lead. And the only way he was going to go up there and pass his teammate is if his teammate ran out of gas or made a mistake. Because at that point, you have to jump on it. So I think he protected him from the 12, basically, coming and taking a win, because the 19 hadn't won yet. And the 19 has shown huge speed in the last month or so, right? All kind of poles and everything. So, I mean, it's not that he didn't deserve a win either. So the 11's a company guy. He knows that he'd do the same thing for, his own cars if he could,
So if anyone saw, you mentioned it, Ryan's post-race interview with Kim Kuhn, he looked rough is what I would say, and a little bit shaky. And what TV really didn't show you, they talked about it on the broadcast, but they didn't really show you what really was going on with him after post-race.
Yeah.
So during, you mentioned it, I think, early on, didn't you? I think you did.
About 20 laps in, he mentions the cool suit's not working. And then he realizes he didn't plug it in. And then I think during the first caution, they discuss what to do, like about cycling it. Like they have to shut something off, turn something on. It's not a big deal. It's something they can do under caution. But from that point forward, it never worked. So I don't know if just not being plugged in from the get-go and so forth really hurt it. And it just wouldn't function because of that. But yeah, he didn't have a cool suit all day. And he asked for water and asked for ice on different occasions on the pit stop. So,
yeah, and my favorite line from that was, Tim does a great job, and Ryan hasn't always gotten this from spotters, but Tim does his best to try to be a little bit of a cheerleader. But he very calmly, when Ryan was talking about this cool suit issue, just said, "You're gonna be all right. You're tough. You're tough, guy."
Yeah, is
what he says to him.
Yeah.
And that was basically except for one more time, the last time they really talked about it. But yeah, Ryan gets out of the car. He's in pretty kind of just rough shape. I mean, there's a massive heat wave in the East Coast. I know it was cool at the track early on because of the rain, but I mean, you could tell me from when the storm moved out, helped a little bit, but super high humidity, still hot. We post this photo from our friend and contributor Jerry Mariotti, who was out, pit side after the race. He took some photos of Ryan, because Ryan gets out of the car and sits down on the ground. So we shared that on our social channels. You can check that out. But you get the comments immediately that are like, this didn't used to happen back in the day. These guys need to be tougher and all this stuff. Well, these next gen cars are absolutely nothing like what Earnhardt and Wallace and Cale Yarborough and all these tough guys ran back in the day, where they had enough room out their window that they could put their full arm out and wave and yell at guys. These are like greenhouses. It's called a greenhouse, actually, but they operate like a greenhouse. Those things are completely sealed up. They do have some open slats in the back that they put in there after the early next gen tests, where the drivers were saying they were burning up and they needed more airflow in the car. So the temperatures in these cars are way higher than they've ever been. So I don't blame Ryan for taking his time after that. There's some other video out there after it, but it was just funny when he's giving the post race, and and he gets a question from Kim, and he answers it, really long answer to this question. You think it's done, but Kim is really great. And Kim goes in, she always goes in for a second. And I thought maybe she'd cut him a break, but now she goes in for that second question. You could see him like go, and then, okay, I'm going to answer this, but you feel like I really want to sit back down again. So, but yeah, he did. He had the AMR safety folks come over and check him out.
Yeah.
I think it was mainly he was cramping up. So it sounded like, they took him away just on a normal golf cart, nothing kind of crazy. And I'm sure he got some fluids in him and everything. He's probably, hopefully had a little bit more of a quiet day, probably some meetings today, and get some rest though.
Yeah, I'll bring it up that Brad makes a statement that, and the thing is here's the thing: don't make a statement about things you don't know about, and that's what I'm going to say about this. Because Brad, they interviewed him after the race, and he says, "Oh, I could tell a bunch of guys were still dehydrated from last week." What happened to Ryan had nothing to do with last week. It had everything to do with today, with Sunday. It had everything to do with the heat and not having a cool suit. And of course, running up front too, because the amount of concentration and things that you do, and sometimes you don't breathe. You forget to breathe because you're trying so hard. So yeah, I don't want to hear about everybody's still kind of like wanting to attack certain things, and I don't know if Brad's trying to be the spokesperson for the whole garage sometimes, and he really doesn't need to be. Some of these guys are very good at talking for themselves, and they asked, everybody knows today that his cool suit didn't work. So you sound kind of silly when you're making statements for other people when they can do it themselves. So don't assume everything, that you know what you're talking about.
And you mentioned those last few laps, and they told Ryan he knew the situation the 19 was allegedly in. So those last about 4 laps of that race, Ryan was up on the wheel, and he actually got as close to the 11 as he had gotten that whole final run, because I think he knew that if the 19 runs out, it could mess up the 11 up there trying to get around him, and this is going to be his chance. He needs to be on him. So I wouldn't be surprised if, like you said, he's holding his breath. He was making some approaches to those turns and going through those turns, a little bit more riskier, a little bit more faster than it seemed like he had been all race. So, but end of the day, despite all the challenges, the adversity, the speeding penalty, they still come out of a race where they got stage points in the race and a top 5 finish at one of his better racetracks, at a track that he's won at several times throughout his career in multiple series. It's great. Great points day, and a great day in the point standings as well. And really over the past few weeks has been great. Some of this has been because of William Byron having some tough runs. Byron actually, in his backup car yesterday, had a super fast car, and I think he even passed Ryan and went up through the field way faster than Ryan did early in the race. Yeah. But they had an issue with pitting and the way the strategies played out, and I think they may have been one of those ones that got messed up during that caution coming out late too. So they struggled with their finish, and this has helped Ryan in the point standings. At one point, Ryan was 149 or so points back of the leader, and he's climbed back 29 points to 120 back of the leader, who is William Byron, and a position in the standings up to 6th. So top 10 in the NASCAR Cup Series point standings are as follows. Again, William Byron leads Kyle Larson by 54 points. Denny Hamlin, despite missing that race, is 3rd at 78 back. Christopher Bell lost a spot there to 4th, 79 back. Chase Elliott is 80 back in 5th. Ryan again is in 6th, 120 back. Tyler Reddick in 7th at 133 back. 8th is Ross Chastain. 9th is Chase Briscoe, who moved up 2 spots into the top 10. He was outside the top 10 before this win. And teammate Joey Logano lost a position. He's down to 10th in the point standings, 187 points back. Ryan has some work to do to try to get into the top 5 here, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's going to be difficult over the next several races here, just because the types of tracks that they're going to. I know we differ a little bit in opinion on what they can do at road courses, but also there's chaos at road courses too, and there's multiple of those coming up. You have Atlanta this week coming up, where and Ryan has been amazing there. But fans will also point out the fact that at least in 2 of these Atlanta races, he's had incidents in them and had to come back from them, but still has great stats there on the new configuration there. But I'm really proud of what they've been able to accomplish over the last few weeks to climb back out of like a points deficit that they had, to have a legitimate shot to at least fight to get back into the top 5 in the regular season standings. And as I say, every week, the higher up that you can finish in the regular season, the more bonus points you'll get heading into the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs. So I think that pretty much wraps up everything from the Pocono race weekend. Congratulations to Chase Briscoe. I know he had a ton of pressure on him after moving to Joe Gibbs Racing and being in a car that's expected to win. And they finally pulled it off. And whatever miracle, whatever, he did to pray to the racing gods to make that happen, if he really, truly did have to save that much fuel, kudos to them for what they were able to do. So that brings us to actually a topic I'm excited for once. One of the few times all year long I'm excited to talk about this. That's the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. There's still a little bit of a bonehead move that I did that could have helped me out here. But one of I think it is the best fantasy weekend for me all year long. And I don't know how it happened, because I don't put like tons of effort and research, and I do it by feeling every week on when I set my lineup. I did wait till after practice and qualifying. Sometimes I set my lineup early in the week, just under my assumptions of who's going to run well. Starters, Daniel Suarez, which I picked because Suarez is actually one of the tracks that he's been sneaky good at throughout his career. I think he's finished second to Ryan, possibly in one of his wins. He has a couple top 5. So I thought he'd do well. He didn't do bad, but 22 points on the day. Chris Buescher, 48. Denny Hamlin, 51. Chase Briscoe, 57. Ryan Preece, 29. And I think he could have been a little bit better too, but some of the stuff shook up his strategy. This was my thing. I had Brad Keselowski in the garage all race. That's how it was set up going into the race. There was a point when I was sitting there and I'm looking at it during stage 2, and I'm like, should I bring him in and put Suarez? Because Suarez wasn't really having a great day. They qualified great, but they just fell back through the field after that. Brad had his issues. He pitted too early, and that like nailed it for me. I was like, no, he's going to stay. It's going to be tough for him to come back from that. If I had brought Brad and made that swap, I would have won the weekend. So that makes me a little sad. But I ran the table in the featured matchups. This might be the first time that's happened to me all year, maybe one other time. Picked Busch over Logano. That was right. Hocevar over Stenhouse, Blaney over Elliott, and Hamlin over Byron. So I ended up with 247 points on the weekend in second position overall.
Let's see here. I had Hamlin, Briscoe, Logano, Keselowski, and then I had Ryan. And I had Bell in the garage, and that pretty much worked out the way it was. And I didn't, like I said, at the track, you really can't make it. A lot of moves with the lack of Wi-Fi. I had Logano over Buescher. That was wrong. I had Hocevar over Stenhouse. That was right. I had Ryan over Chase. That was right. And I had Hamlin over Byron. That was right. So I had 10 more points on the table there. But I believe I finished, I think it was 20th overall. So not too bad, really, considering.
17th.
Oh, 17th. I'm sorry.
Tie for 17th. Not too bad.
Not too bad at all, really, considering.
So, yeah, you were at a tie for 17th, 228 points on the day. Let's take a look at the top 10 in points earned at Pocono. And that starts with a tie for 9th with Twin Mag and Penske Fan 24 with 236 points. We had a tie for 7th with our friend Joe Bro here and Charlie Abu, 239 points. 6th, Queen of the Caniacs, 242 points. 5th, Factory of Sadness 6, 244. Tie for 3rd here between Alyssa C and Vance 12, 246. Team Blaney host Adam, 2nd, 247 points, and just by 3 points. Subak 5 wins the weekend, 250 points overall at Pocono Raceway. Let's take a look at the overall standings in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. I've moved out of the 60s, but just barely. 59th overall now in the league. I'm struggling. 2,875 points. You are up. Wow. You made a valiant leap in the standings back into the top 10. In 10th, Mez 12, 3,224 points. In 9th, hashtag LGM, 3,258. Dr. Race Chaser is in 8th, 3,263. 7th is Penske Fan 24, 3,274. Sixth, Go 12 Go, 3,293. Fifth, former champion Clyde's Chicken Pit Racing, 3,305. Fourth is Alyssa C, 3,314. Pit Stop Pro is third, 3,342 points. Vans 12 is in second, 3,370 points. And now just 18 points ahead is Jordan Daniels leading the way, 3,388 points. From what I understand, Steve, he didn't appreciate the way we were congratulating him for leading this past week. So I don't have any. I'm sorry. I still don't have anything. Yeah. Cheers. Cheers to you, Jordan. Congratulations. Wow. We wish you the best the rest of the way. Leading the way into the fantasy league. And that brings us this weekend to the race at, I'm going to say it, Atlanta Motor Speedway. Forget what they're trying to tell you it's called now. Down there in Hampton, Georgia. Things kick off on Friday with qualifying, 5:05 p.m. Eastern time for the NASCAR Cup Series. It's different this week. True TV is your destination for qualifying this week for the Cup Series, and qualifying only. No practice at this hybrid super speedway track.
No
you can listen to it on PRN Sirius XM NASCAR radio. I could be wrong, but I also thought Max was going to be involved in this package, so we might have to check that out to see if Max is also a place you can watch practice in this scenario. The NASCAR Xfinity Series race follows practice at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. The Focused Health 250. You can watch that on the CW and PRN Sirius XM NASCAR radio. And then the race, for those planning your weekend, it is a Saturday night race for the NASCAR Cup Series, the first Saturday night race of the season. And this is a little weird. Earlier in the day, 1 p.m. Eastern time, you have the Liuna 150 for the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. They are at Lime Rock Park road course up there in the Northeast. So the series are split. So the Xfinity Series race is on Friday night. The Craftsman Truck Series race is at 1 p.m. Eastern time on Fox, on the main network, on Saturday. So 2 races on Saturday. You have one in the afternoon and then one in the evening, being the 7 p.m. Eastern time Quaker Steak 400, available at Walmart. That's going to be on TNT. You have the in-car cameras on Max. You can listen to it on PRN and Sirius XM NASCAR radio. Statistics for Ryan Blaney at Atlanta Motor Speedway. He does have a victory at Atlanta Motor Speedway in 2021 on the old configuration. Unfortunate. But since the new configuration debuted in 2022, Ryan has mostly been lights out at this track. The first race on the new configuration, he did finish 17th, but he had a little bit better race than that. He led 15 laps in that race, but fell to 17th. Since then, 5th, 7th, 9th, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and he sat on the pole there earlier this year and finished 4th. I mentioned it earlier, at least in 2 of those races, he had some spins that he had to come back from and still came back for good finishes. Overall at Atlanta, average start of 10.2, average finish 9.6, 9 top 10s, 5 or 7 top 5s. Again, some of that has some of those other stats thrown into it from the old configuration, but he is on a streak of 6 top 10 finishes in the last 7 races there, and 5 out of the last 7 he's finished in the top 5. Crazy statistics. But it's also a crazy and chaotic race. Now I'm interested to see what happens here. It is summer. It is going to be at night though. But every time they've come back to this new configuration, handling has become more and more and more important as time has gone on. The track is weathering rather rapidly. I remember the very first time we were there after it, they paved it black, super high gloss, like black track. It is super gray now. So it's going to be interesting to see. Now, I think being at night is going to change things a little bit. You won't have the sun beating down on it. Maybe it'd be a little bit more slicker. So they might be more gripped up for this race. We did 2 years ago, get to see a Saturday night race, which I thought was awesome. Just the way, I mean, if you go to a Saturday night race at Daytona for the August race, it's amazing. Under the lights, the cars look, it's like electric atmosphere. You put that at Atlanta, and it's like on fast forward because they're flying by as a pack. They're flying by way faster than they do, seemingly because the laps tick by faster than they do at Daytona. They're in packs. The runs are big when they get them. The runs are more plentiful as the track has aged. The first couple of races there, they were packed up and they stayed really packed up. But now, because there's handling involved, some guys get loose. They'll get 3 wide. They will get 3 wide in the turns here at times, and it makes it a little crazy. And I'm hoping to see an exciting race. I haven't looked too much at the weather report. It's kind of been hit and miss on what things look like for the weekend. I see the last thing I saw, like maybe it said stray thunderstorm for Saturday. I'm really going to wait until like Wednesday to make my judgment. It is one of the races we go to, all the Atlanta races, so I'll be out and about in the fan zone and at the track this weekend. So if you see me, probably be wearing some Team Blaney gear at least one of the days. And I'm not sure. I believe Advanced Auto Parts is on the car this weekend, and I might be wearing my Advanced crew shirt too. So we'll see how it goes. So, Atlanta, what are you expecting here? Let's take a look at this last race there in the spring. Christopher Bell won, Hocevar second, Larson third, Blaney fourth, Stenhouse fifth, Hamlin, Busch, Chastain, Bubba, and John Hunter Nemechek finished in the top 10. Tell you what, John Hunter Nemechek has found something this season. They've had a lot of great runs for Legacy Motorsports, in my opinion, kind of even outshining his teammate Eric Jones, who is not a favorite of ours. So
this was the race in the spring where Hocevar made a lot of friends.
Yeah.
He had a bunch of people wanting to talk to him after the race, not just Ryan, by the way. And it's funny is that he literally, it was pushing in the corners that did it.
That's true. I mentioned Ryan spins, and I forgot to mention why he drove through him. Yeah, that's
Mr. Pushing in the corners, right? And it's funny is that he does the same thing when he's on his iRacing on Twitch. Maybe they ought to start finding him for the way he iRaces on Twitch too. Calm him down a little bit.
Want to know the best part, Steve? About Mr. Hocevar this weekend? It's the beginning of the in-season challenge for the NASCAR Cup Series, a bracket challenge for the Cup Series over the next several races while it's TNT takes over the coverage. Prime's been talking about it. They've been talking about the seeding. I know there's people upset about the seeding. It was weird. It's like you had to hit a cutoff in the point standings, and they gave you 3 races, and they took your best finish, and then they seeded everybody by best finish. Everyone's like, why didn't they just do points? Oh, well. We can't pick it now. It's too late. Fill out your bracket. But, Steve, guess who the first matchup Ryan has this weekend in round 1?
Hocevar.
Carson Hocevar.
So, and Wednesday night already, we just to let you guys know, Wednesday night we do our live on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, and TikTok too. We are going to break down the brackets. I'm going to do my brackets live right here. I don't know if my wife's going to do hers live or not. We're going to try to set up our whiteboard for it. So you want an in-depth analysis on the brackets Wednesday night, 8:00.
If you want to see this for yourself, I'm not going to go through all the matchups. I'm going to save that for your guys' live show on Wednesday. That should be interesting. If you go to NASCAR.com/in-season-challenge, if you just go to NASCAR.com in general, you'll see it. If you go to the apps, they have advertisements for it. If you're a member of the NASCAR Fan Rewards, it says, I haven't filled my bracket out yet, but it says if you fill out a bracket, you'll get 150 bonus points for Fan Rewards. That's another reason to do that. This is the silly thing. I don't think this is enough, but if you filled out a perfect bracket, they're going to reward you with 15,000 points. That's a lot of points for the system. That's an experience. But when I'm thinking about what, Warren Buffett's offered up $1 million if you can get the perfect NCAA tournament bracket. Yeah. So I'm like $1 million for that. And I think this is even more volatile to try and figure out for a race weekend. So 15,000 rewards points, meh. You can get like a couple sets of tickets with that if you're not going to do experiences. So I think they should have given you an all expenses paid trip to the Daytona 500 or something.
500 or something. Yeah, make it.
I don't think anyone's going to get a perfect bracket, but maybe somebody will. But that's what I think. So, or maybe a lot of people will, and they're smart because they may have. They're working with DraftKings Sportsbook on this thing, so maybe those folks have given them some odds, and maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe it is easier in this to pick a perfect bracket. So, I'll have to fill mine out and see how that goes. So, looking forward to your show on Wednesday. So again, if you want to tune in this weekend at Atlanta Motor Speedway, not Echo Park Speedway. Okay. Friday, June 27th, 5:05 p.m. Eastern Time for qualifying on True TV, and then Saturday. Gosh, I almost had it wrong. Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, the Quaker State 400 available at Walmart on TNT. So back on cable. So anyone that's been upset about Prime, now we're going to hear I don't have cable, but on cable this weekend on TNT, in-car cameras on Max, on the radio with PRN and SiriusXM NASCAR radio. Let's see if Ryan Blaney can keep up this amazing statistical run that he's going on at Atlanta Motor Speedway. The only thing he hasn't done basically there has won the race. So he's in that three-wide finish with Suarez and Busch, finished second, had some other opportunities to win there. His teammate, Austin Cindric, won there. Austin Cindric is really good there. I shouldn't say won there. Yeah. So he's going to be somebody to look out for this weekend. Logano is going to be somebody to look out for this weekend. And hopefully Hocevar takes care of himself and Ryan can move on to the bracket.
Ryan had some interesting things to say about the bracket too. You know,
that's one thing. So I mentioned the fans being a little uneasy about the way seating worked. A lot of media folks have been asking lots of drivers, and you'll see a difference. I heard an interview with Noah Gragson this morning. Actually, he was on SiriusXM NASCAR radio, and he said all people talked about on the charter plane home from Pocono this weekend was the bracket, and the crew guys were asking who was up against who are they up against this week. So I think some industry people were kind of downplaying it headed into it, but now that it's actually here and you can see the bracket, there's going to be a lot of interest in this. Drivers like Chase Elliott and some others have kind of downplayed it. I think some of that's to save face, knowing the tracks that are coming up, that like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, whatever, because it's too chaotic. And Denny Hamlin on the other side totally bought into this. He says he wants his team telling him where, his opponent is, during the race, especially down the stretch, that it's something he's definitely going to be watching for. But he's also the guy that pioneered this a couple of years ago. But you're right. I should have said it at the top of the show, but if you guys somehow missed it and you're listening to this show, if you're watching it right now live on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, Ryan Blaney, for the second time in 2025, came on for about a half-hour interview with us at the end of last week on Friday. We put that out. We've been posting several clips, but one of the questions we asked him and talked about him with was this in-season tournament and kind of give his opinions on what he thought about it. And I'm going to go ahead and try to share that one with everybody. If I can.
The in-season.
Of course it's on.
Bracket thing that starts next week and all.
Yeah, I didn't really pay attention to it in Michigan when they started the seeding. And then Mexico City, I didn't really pay attention to it. And then I saw a graph of where the seeding is currently after Mexico City, and I was like, ooh, I kind of need to get my seeding up. Which honestly, like, round one seeding doesn't really matter. We're going to Atlanta next week, so it doesn't really, you're going to have some upsets of guys who don't, who are lower. So I wouldn't say it's really like at the top of my mind right now. But I think it'll be something that you're thinking about a little bit through the in-season tournament, like who you're racing. You're not going to compromise your race for that. But you're definitely going to be aware. Like and the cool thing about the in-season tournament, I think, is like, obviously it's going to be like a bunch of races within the race. But you're going to be like, if you're running, if you're in this second or third race of this thing and you're racing the guy that you're going up against for 10th, you're going to be racing your ass off for 10th, right? To beat that guy. Like, so there's going to be some cool battles. I hope they can cover the things that are going on and kind of keep track of that, as well as keep track of the big races going on. And I also think it's unique. It gives us a chance to, right? Other sports, it's one team versus one team, right? It's 1v1. This sport is not that way. Motorsports, it's one person versus the whole field of drivers. And, so it's not often that you get like a head-to-head matchup that means stuff. It means a lot. And so I think it'll be neat to be able to be a part of it and for them to cover it correctly. I hope they do a good job of covering it correctly and showing these battles and what we're going for. So it'll be fun. It'll be a fun time. You're going to be competing hard. Like I said, it could be for 20th, and you're like, why are they racing so hard for 20th? It's like, well, I got to beat this guy to transfer to the next round and try to still win the money. So I think it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
So that's what Ryan Blaney himself had to say about the in-season tournament. I thought he had a great kind of a great analysis of it, a great attitude about it, maybe compared to some others. And I think it really was. It was just time. It was like they needed to get to it. So the other cool thing that's going to happen, Ryan in that a few times mentioned, I hope they cover it well. I think TNT, so the TNT booth is going to be the same as the Prime booth. And I think Junior is kind of into this idea a little bit as well. So I think they will cover it well on the main broadcast, but they also are going to have an alternative broadcast hosted by Jeff Burton and Larry McReynolds. They're going to be in a studio in Atlanta throughout this time. And if you've watched like some NFL broadcasts and stuff that they do, they have like the Manning cast and things. That's a little bit different than what they're doing here, but you can watch the race through the eyes of Jeff Burton and Larry McReynolds, who are specifically going to be watching the matchups from this challenge. So that's going to be on True TV. The main race is going to be on TNT, and then I believe this alternative broadcast will be on True TV throughout the race. So if you're really interested in this bracket thing, or if you just I'm really interested just to see how they're going to present the race on their side, what it's going to look like, and what kind of graphics they'll have. It might be interesting to watch it that way. So, we told Ryan about that right after we talked about this question. He thought it was kind of be a great thing for people to tune in and see, and hopefully hype things up a little bit more. So, I'm gonna fill out my bracket at some point before the weekend. Try to get my rewards points, but I'm gonna have to tune into your show on Wednesday night. To see what you guys are going to do. So maybe I need to fill mine out before, just so I'm not going to get accused of trying to copy you on what you're going to be planning for that. So we'll have to see. Well, Steve, I think that pretty much wraps up everything for this episode of the Team Blaney podcast. Again, we just played that clip from the interview with Ryan Blaney. If you have not seen it yet, if you're not listened to it yet, you can listen to it on all the podcast platforms that we are out on. But you can also watch it and all of our other previous interviews, including another in-depth interview with Ryan that happened just last month, and several other crew members. We have the newest crew member on the team, Keaston France, is up there. You can find that on our YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and check out Team Blaney. We also have it linked on our social media accounts, and we're going to continue to post clips throughout the week and into the future from this past interview with Ryan as well, if you kind of want to digest it in bite-sized packages. So check that out from us. Thank you, everyone, once again for tuning in again to this episode of the Team Blaney podcast. During the week and on race day, you can find us on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, and the aforementioned YouTube channel. Just search for Team Blaney. We also like to encourage you to support the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation. Ryan's official charitable organization benefits brain health causes like UPMC Sports Medicine and the Alzheimer's Association. To learn more, visit RyanBlaneyFamilyFoundation.org or follow them on Facebook, X, and Instagram as well. So for my co-host Steve Mez, I'm Adam Rogers. We'll catch you next time right here on the Team Blaney podcast.
Good night, San Diego. Check out the TikTok.